Welcome back to Oh, and Another Thing, your favorite number one hot news and politics podcast in US of A. Thank you for tuning in again for what I've been told is a Friday edition of Oh, and Another Thing. It's day, I'm guessing 40 or 38 or maybe 36, possibly 25 of our quarantine, if you will, here at the Oh and Another Thing studios. We went out this morning for some groceries. It was our first contact with the outside world in 2 weeks, and let me tell you, a lot has changed. Did you know that they have paper bags at all the grocery stores now? Do you know they charge you for paper bags at grocery stores? Couldn't find my tote this morning, so had a little run-in at the grocery store with one of the ladies up front. We're not going to get into it here because that's not what we're here for. We're here for news and politics. Again, Oh, and Another Thing. Your host, Vince Patrone, that's me. Our producer, Bertram Beans, is running around the studio someplace. He'll be in and out as he always is. Follow us on Twitter, at Yukon Carnitas, a tool for the left. Yukon Carnitas, a tool for the left. That's me. Search me that way, or at Vince_Patrone. Follow the show, follow Bertram. Oh, and Another Thing. At O and Another TH1 on Twitter. Find us there. Give us a follow. Take part in Bert's polling. Never miss an episode. Get all of the takes, all the news, all of my opinions on things happening in the world. It's an eye-opening experience. Worth a follow. So give us a follow there. If you are a first-time listener, if today is your first Oh, and Another Thing, and you're interested in becoming a full-time other thing, maybe you're between jobs. What do you have time to do? Become another thing. So what you can do to do that, go hit the subscribe button on whatever you're listening on. If you are one of our big news here today, first-time watchers on the YouTube. Where's my camera? Where's my, there it is. There it is. Hello. Welcome. Hit the subscribe button. I understand you can leave comments on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Good.
Like it.
Oh, and like it. I'm learning a lot here. I have my video producer here. She's behind the camera. Bertram's doing the audio. Anyway, happy to have you with us if you're listening or watching on the YouTube. Here we are. Anyway, great show for you today. Oh, how else can you listen? Getting ahead of myself. Thrown off by the video. You can go to Spotify. You can go to Apple Podcast. You can go to Podbean. Shout out to the host of this podcast. Follow us on any of those. Subscribe to us on any of those platforms. Share us however you can. Share us as far as the eye can see. Share us as far as you can throw us. And I'm hoping you can throw us at least a quarter mile. So, share us. Get us out there. Get your friends listening. Get your friends watching. As you can tell, we're here in the Oh and Another Thing studios. We have the art pieces behind us. I don't know if we can do a little pan over there. How about that? Doing my own pans and manning the microphone. Wow, what a day. Anyway, we have a great show for you today. We have a lot to talk about. Obviously, it will be the latest on the coronavirus. Obviously, that's all anyone can talk about. We'll talk about the protest or idiocy in Michigan, if you want to call it a protest. We'll talk about all of that. Organizing, how important that's going to be in the next election. You already know that, but we had it highlighted in Wisconsin last week, so we'll talk more about that since we only brushed over it on the Friday podcast, which you can go back and listen to. There won't be a video for it, but you can go back and listen, again, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean. They're all up there for you. We'll talk about the president's plan to reopen the country, the loose plan, if we can call it a plan. Talk more about that whenever we get to it. And do endorsements really matter? We'll find out. All that, all the other things on this week's Friday edition of Oh, and Another Thing. Right after this. Hey gang, it's me, Vince. You know that because you've been watching, because you've been listening. Your host here at Oh and Another Thing, here to talk to you today again about the mask. The new essential for your day-to-day life, we'll call it. I wouldn't leave home without one. Wouldn't catch me dead without a mask in these trying times. Went to the grocery store this morning. I would have my mask on to do this piece right now, but my mask is currently wet I have a cloth mask that we bought off the internet from an Etsy site that I wore, threw a little filter in this morning, went out, and you know what? I felt safe. It's wet right now because I washed it in the sink after, because as soon as I got home I took everything I had off, sanitized all of the fruits and vegetables, and whatever. I don't even know what I bought at the grocery store this morning. I kind of just went in.
You got a lot of cheese.
Got a lot of cheeses for us. I whipped around the grocery store, grabbed what I could, got out of there. It only took me 30 minutes, and I left with a pretty good haul. That's not the story here. But is it? So, I go in, have my mask on. I feel safe in what was a pretty sparse crowd. And I have a feeling it's something that's going to be with us for a while. So, if you see someone on the street, don't point and say, he's wearing a mask. If you see someone on the street that's not wearing a mask, you should in fact say, get him! He's not wearing a mask! Pile on, give him a mask, kick him in the ribs, walk away. That's all we gotta do. Because we gotta have these masks. We gotta make sure everyone has them. The city of New York, I'm not sure if it's the whole state, says we have to wear them if we're inside anywhere, we can't go inside. Which brings up, logistical things such as, why not just give people masks? Well, how are we going to get these people these masks? And these things need to be done. Do not get me wrong. Don't ask what this mask can do for you, but where you can find this mask. They're online. Make your own. Throw a filter in, throw a paper towel in, throw a coffee filter in. Sky's the limit on these masks. Wear them, be safe, make it fine to do. Don't bully people wearing masks. Simple as that. Simple as that. And you can look cool in a mask. You should see some of these kids down in Long Island City. They wear the masks for fashion. Anyway, they've been wearing masks for years in this city just to look cool. So, protect yourself, protect your loved ones. Friends, family, people around you, people in grocery stores. Throw on a mask. Don't cough on them. Don't get coughed on. It's a win-win situation. Wear a goddamn mask. More. Oh, and another thing right after this. Welcome back to and another thing. We're recording. Don't worry. We're all good. I have the light on my side, not on the production side. Anyway, it's over here. What are you doing? Oh, you're getting burnt. There's the producer. Yeah, they can see him. That's him. That's the Bortram Beans. Luckily, we have a long interlude for this segment here because we have a little bit of polka playing, showing off our roots. If you can't tell, I'm very white. Sun's hitting me awful hard right here. This is for the visual medium, folks. Right now, I'm very pale. We haven't seen the light of day again in 2 weeks. We can go on our fire escape. By the time we hit our fire escape, though, the sun is down for the most part. We spend most of the day indoors. I haven't seen the light of day. Giovanna hasn't seen it. Well, I guess I saw the light before you saw the light. I've been out.
I've seen, nothing.
You haven't been out in weeks, years, honestly.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were out? 2016?
We went out...
2017?
I was outside 2.5 weeks ago. Last time we got
Last time we went for the groceries was 2.5.
So I haven't been outside in 2.5 weeks.
You look great, though. Lucky for you. Lucky for you, looks great.
Shows on my mental health and well-being.
On her mental health and well-being videos, which you can check out on Wednesdays on her YouTube channel, which is... Just search for...
We'll link it in the description.
We'll link it in the description.
Don't you worry.
Little plug for you guys today. Anyway, back to some real business. The latest on coronavirus. The music finally stopped, so we get to be stark and depressing. Okay, so the latest on the coronavirus. The death, and I'm getting these all from the Washington Post. What I should let the new listeners and let the new watchers know is I get most of my news from the Washington Post, Associated Press, Reuters, and some random articles on the New York Times, because I don't subscribe to that rag. I won't do it. Them or the Post. The New York Post. WAPO, great. New York Post, bad post. So, anyway, that's where I get my news. That's where I'm reading this little segment from. All of your latest is brought to you by the fine folks over at the Washington Post. So, the death toll in Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak in China, has been revised upward by 50%. Change followed widespread criticism of China's data, though officials offered several reasons for the revision, including at-home deaths that weren't included in earlier statistics, which raises the interesting question, how will we count our dead? And I know that I shouldn't laugh at that, but how will our dead be counted? I know they're already talking about how we have undercounts happening everywhere, essentially, because a lot of us can't go die in a hospital. We have to die at home because our hospitals are full some places. And they're saying, if you don't need to come in, don't come in, save the bed. So, especially in the early goings of the coronavirus, you guys will remember there was all the talk about hospitals overflowing, just the rampant death. And luckily we found a way that we could bring that down a little bit. We'll talk about that later on here. So it's not as many people hopefully dying at home now, but it'll be interesting to see how that affects our numbers whenever we go back and retally. It's going to be really stark, really awful few days when we get the real numbers out, but they're doing it now in China, and I reckon the rest of the world's not far from doing a recount on all of it. U.S. stocks, some good news. The futures, whatever the hell that is, soared on Friday because people are excited that there is a somewhat successful treatment for the COVID-19 symptoms. Trial only involved 125 people, and preliminary results have not been peer-reviewed. So, it's early. They think they have a good test for it. It's created some optimism in the markets. That's fine enough news because the markets are dog shit terrible right now, to be honest. So, outbreaks in the United States have sickened workers and forced closures at some of the country's biggest meat processing plants, sparking fears of a beef shortfall. Let's talk about this for a minute.
What's the beef?
What's the beef? Exactly. So, obviously, the dash to get beef occurred weeks ago. So now, at this point, I don't know why. Bert's staring out there. We caught Bert looking. Anyway, that happens from time to time. We're talking about beef. Where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
Where's the beef? That's what it is.
I can cut this out and post it.
Leave it. So, obviously the mad dash to collect beef happened already, and it happened weeks ago. So now you're seeing production behind. You're seeing more people go out looking for beef as they run out of beef and other meats. I ran into this at the grocery store today where I paid a little more than I probably should have for a pair of chicken's breasts. So that was funny. Chicken's breast was funny. That was funny. It was good. Anyway, you liked it. So I'm in the grocery store. The chicken's breasts are expensive. The meat's expensive. Then I get reports from my sister. Shout out to Gianna if she's listening or watching. Going to the local meat market in the town where I'm from. If you know me, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to name any names. Lying out the door. I don't want to trash a local business. It's not the time for that. But they had to charge an arm and a leg because you can't go to some of these. It's not even their fault. No fault of the place's own. But a lot of these small butcher shops that people go to, be it if the lines are too long at the grocery store, be it they prefer the cuts of the meat, they trust the meat a little more, it's got to be more expensive to go to those kinds of places just because of the demand issues and because of the rising prices worldwide. So a lot of these places that are smaller butcher shops, smaller delis, places where you would go maybe not so traditionally. I know we don't often go to butcher shops. We have one right around the corner here, but we don't go to it very often just because the grocery store is so convenient. A lot of those places are now, some of those small businesses that weren't at risk before are more likely to be at risk now because of obviously people not being able to afford to spend money on those meats, and therefore those meats aren't being sold, profits not being made, more businesses with the likely to go under. So that slippery slope of the economy continues to go with more people filing for unemployment this week. I think there was five more Jeeps, if only. 5 million more people applied for unemployment this week or were able to apply for unemployment this week. So things are not necessarily getting any better for the economy here, which could be why there's so much stress about getting us back and going, which we'll talk about here in the next segment. But that is your latest for the most part in regards to that cure that they're kind of close to having, or the medication they're close to having. I'm not a doctor, so do not take everything I say with like, oh, well, Vince said we can take it. Don't go with that. Nobody's ever said that before. I don't know why you would start now. But also, Doug Gottlieb, the former FDA commissioner, or is he current? No, former FDA commissioner, says that he doesn't think it's a cure for the virus. It's not a slam dunk, though it is working in some of those patients. So Don't just do things because the president says you or says so, or because you saw an ABC News article that says so. Nothing against the fine folks at ABC News. They're just not doctors either. We all went to journalism school. You wouldn't know it. Anyway, on to the other news. The other things, if you will. Let me pull up my notes here. Face ID. Never be able to get my info with this Face ID, am I right, Bert? Anyway, so we've done the latest, and it's time for us to talk about something I think we could all do a lot better of and save us a lot of stress from, especially in this trying time where we're all stuck inside. Arguing for people's bases. You'll notice that's been kind of a theme in the papers the past couple of days. It's been a lot of, well, can Joe compete for Trump's base? Do we have to worry about Joe's base going to Donald Trump? Is there a chance we could alienate Biden voters? Let me stop everybody there. For one, first and foremost, you're not moving Trump's base. We've been trying for 3 years. We've been having conversations at VFWs. We've been having conversations at grocery stores. We've been having conversations across kitchen tables. We've been having conversations with our aunts and uncles. And they lead us to nowhere. Oftentimes. That's not 100% of the cases. I know there's a lot of good, decent folks out there that are more middle ground Republicans that are able to move. But if you're on Facebook all day, and I have fallen into this hole where I'm on Facebook all day dropping little comments on people that I know have no chance of moving because of who they are, the age group they belong to, socioeconomic status, any number of things that creates Trump's base, you're not getting through to them. And I think that's also why, one, do we even want them to come over to Biden's side? Obviously, we need their votes, but would we want them to be a part of a developing Democratic Party where they could allow their racist, xenophobic ideals and believe that there isn't truly a class struggle to manifest itself in the party? No. So maybe keep that 30% of Republican electorate or 25%, whatever it's at right now. Let Donald Trump keep it. Not worth fighting for. Not worth your stress and energy. And we'll talk more about that in a minute here. As for Biden's base, this kind of combines two segments here, but I don't believe Joe Biden has a true base. Joe Biden has people that are going to vote for him, and that's a much larger, if you want to consider that his base, just people that are more willing to vote for Joe Biden than to vote for Donald Trump, call that his base, that's fine. Because I guarantee you that's still a bigger base than what Donald Trump has. People that are just happy enough to vote for someone that's not Donald Trump. That's Joe Biden's base right now. That being said, I don't think you have to worry about a large portion of those people who turned out to vote in primaries just leaving Joe Biden's side because suddenly he adopts a new policy. Which is kind of one of the benefits. I'm trying to find silver lining here. If you're a first-time watcher, first-time listener, you know this is a very progressive podcast. We were all in for Beth Warren. We were all in for Bernie. Been happy with either of them. We were hoping for Beth Warren, but when she was out, we were pulling for Bernie. Now that Bernie's out, we're 100% pulling for Joe Biden here. This is an endorsement.
Wow.
Well, I don't have any other option. Much like the rest of the country, I don't have any other option. That being said, I think there's less risk of Joe Biden's base vacating him, leaving, going to Trump's side, because he adopts a couple of more progressive-leaning policies. We already saw him do that with student loan forgiveness, a lukewarm change to his health care proposal. AOC called it an insult. I'm going to call it movement because we need to get the party together on this, because I don't think saying that Joe Biden isn't doing enough is going to, and he's not, let's be fair. It's not the policies we want. It's not the platform we want. But that plays into this next thing here. There is no real policy platform. There is no base really for Joe Biden to have to worry about. So instead, this is my challenge to the Bernie voters out there that have been saying on Twitter that they're not going to vote for Joe Biden because he's Joe Biden. There's a few things to remember, but one of them is well, first off, you don't get anything Bernie wanted done with the Trump presidency. You don't get anything Bernie wanted done losing down ballot races because you didn't show up to vote. So you have to vote anyway. But there's a great chance here, a really good chance, and I've been saying it for weeks on this podcast, that we have a very weak incumbent president. There's a good chance to move Biden further left than he's already moved since he was vice president. I know that sounds crazy to say that Biden has moved left whenever it's not that far left, but he has moved, and the platform we're getting here is still a pretty decent platform, but there's not a lot to it, which is the exciting thing, because now there is more room for Joe Biden to move himself a little bit. The lack of hard policy beliefs from Joe Biden, the lack of the lack of true moral vigor from Joe Biden. No, I'm kidding. The lack of like a hardcore policy platform, aside from a Medicare proposal, which I think is going to be the hardest thing to move him on. The people voting for Joe Biden do not care what happens policy-wise. They have proven that. I believe most of Joe Biden's voters, I'm sure there are some that do not want Medicare for all that are scared of it. I'm sure there are people who do not believe in a $15 minimum wage voting for Joe Biden, even though we know that Joe Biden has been a vocal support of a nationalized $15 minimum wage. There are places that, since there is lack of policy from Biden, that we can help create policy from Biden. And what I would like to see, and I don't know if we actually have a ton of time for this, I believe we have, 8 months? 7.5. We have 7.5 months till election, I believe. Right around in there. So maybe there's not entirely enough time to do this, but I was reading an interesting thing a couple months ago in a book I was reading called They Don't Represent Us by Lawrence Lessig. It's a law book. Anyway, no big deal. They were talking about how in, I believe... I don't want to get the country wrong, so I'm not going to say it, but in one of the Asian countries, it might have been one of the Tibetan countries. I don't know if that's right either, but regardless, he was talking about how one of these countries got together and redrafted their constitution in a conference. I know they did it in Sweden also. That's how the Swedes got their constitution, was they got together and they drafted it as a group. And there's been pushes to do that here in America for our constitution. There's been talk of having a constitutional convention to update and modernize it. It doesn't go anywhere because not enough people want to do it, because a lot of people are fine enough with the originalism explanation of the Constitution. But is there enough time for Democrats to get together, sit down with Joe Biden's campaign folks, Joe Biden's people, whoever, get a constituency of senators and House representatives together, and heck, maybe even some actual citizens, some regular voters, I don't know how you figure that out, get them together and bang out the Democratic Party platform, what it's going to be moving forward, because I think that is a big cause for a lot of the disarray that they always talk about in the Democratic Party, is that both sides of the Democratic Party, the moderate and the progressive side, want good things for this country. They want to do the things that Democrats have done for years, and that is use government funds, use taxpayer money to benefit taxpayers, because that is what government is supposed to do. It's supposed to give you benefit for the money you paid to the government, so they can give you some things from that. It works. That's what tax money is for. Both sides want to do it. One wants to do more, the other wants to do a little bit. If we can come together, have some kind of a convention, some kind of a conference. I know that's what's supposed to happen at the DNC, but that doesn't actually happen at the DNC. It doesn't happen at the RNC either. Yeah, you've been to enough company holiday parties to know that nothing happens at a company holiday party, which is essentially what these RNC, DNC get-togethers tend to be. You figure out your party's candidate, but otherwise, bunch of hobnobbing, schmoozing, eating cheap vendor food in a stadium. These aren't like get down to business conventions. So we need to have a real get down to business convention with the Democratic Party. Both sides, every aspect of it, all the little fringe parties, all the unions, everybody come together. Everybody figure out what's the best policy platforms for the Democratic Party to move into the future with. We have an empty vessel in Joe Biden. Think of Joe Biden as an old empty vessel to store your hopes and dreams in. I'm sorry. That's all we have. We get together, we bang out a policy platform that maybe it doesn't include Medicare for all, but it includes sweeping free education, it includes rent caps, it includes a nationalized minimum wage, it includes some form of a Medicare for all. I would even be fine with Medicare for all who want it. I know that's a big back step, but there is a thing called a compromise, and we have to do more of it. And I had a complaint about that this morning. Side tangent here. I think progressives kind of suck at doing that. I think there's a lack of ability to play. There's a game you have to play a little bit. And you have to compromise. And there is no will to compromise. And I think we see more will to compromise from AOC than we saw from Bernie. And we heard that on a New York Times daily podcast today. I don't usually plug other podcasts, but go check that out. She had a lot of interesting things to say. And I think she dissected the downfalls of the Bernie campaign pretty well. What caused them not to be so successful as they should be. That being said, now this was all about having people's bases fight over bases. You're not getting Trump's base to come to the Democratic Party. You're not getting Biden's base generally to go to the Republican Party, or at least vote Trump in this, because there's a reason they're voting for Joe Biden. It's because they just don't like Trump. I think that's a big reason the turnout numbers were so high in Virginia and in South Carolina and in Nevada and in all these other places where primaries have happened so far, is that people don't like Trump that much. Now, there is that small sliver of people that go to state houses and get together and do these anti-distancing rallies we'll talk about now. So this is one of the reasons I've decided to not worry about Trump's base, not try so hard to fight for anything more than people that are actually gettable votes, actually open-minded, listening folks. I know you have to talk to everybody for politics. I know you have to talk to all coalitions, all number of people to get anything done, to move forward, to get votes, to form a coalition. You have to talk to everybody. But if there's a group of people that you're trying to get to see things logically, to understand the true depth of this pandemic, to understand the true human cost of what this pandemic will be, and you've gotten through to most people, except for maybe 1,000 folks in Michigan that decided, I know this is everywhere, there's people like this everywhere, but if you're scared after seeing the display in Michigan last week by the anti-quarantine folks, what do they call it? AntiSocial Distancing or whatever? Don't. That is 1,000 people from around one state getting together to block up traffic to hospitals, to carry their guns around, wave Trump flags, wave Confederate flags. That's 1,000 people. I promise you those 1,000 people are only a health risk to themselves and the people they hang around. And that's why at this point, I'm not going to get mad about them doing that. It's stupid. It puts the whole population at risk because of how awful this pandemic is, how awful coronavirus is, how transmittable it is. But if these people are going to go out and protest and wave their flags, bring their family out, bring all their kids out to show there ain't nothing to worry about and them libs are stupid, locking themselves up inside all day. Look at me, I'm out here, I ain't got no virus. Shit. I don't care about them. If those people want to put their lives at risk to go fight for some bullshit cause that's not going to make a difference in their day-to-day lives, because guess what? Still not going to get to go back to work. Still not going to get to go to the Garth Brooks concert in 3 weeks. It's not going to happen. So go ahead, go out, make yourself sick, have fun on the steps, dress up like a goddamn G.I. Joe, make a fool of yourself in front of the entire nation. We don't care. I think that's a perfectly fine stance to take. If we ignore these people and ignore them into the depths of society where they should have belonged, and they do belong, I don't think we have half the trouble we have. We can ignore the loudest voices very easily. Because we just have to remember, they're dumb. These people think they truly know better than doctors. These people think they truly know better than people who've been working at the CDC for years, people who've worked in infectious disease for years, experts, people who have worked with the AIDS. Dr. Fauci literally worked during the AIDS epidemic. That's his claim to fame. His stake in the medical realm is that he was the expert on hand for AIDS. If these people want to believe that because whatever thing they're doing at home, however many beers they're drinking, or whatever stupid little cure they think they came up with because they can rub a ointment on their hands or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They're not educated enough to understand, and we don't need to fight for them, because honestly, they clearly don't care about your health enough for you to worry about theirs. And I know that's not a way to live in society. I know that's not peaceful. I know that's not civilized. But this is the problem that I was speaking about earlier at times with progressives, is that, and the Democratic Party in general, is we don't know how to say, fuck them. Just move on. We don't know how to ignore and just push forward. It's something we need to do now, because it doesn't make sense for us to waste our time online. Doesn't make sense for us to waste our time. I'm wasting my time just talking about what happened in Michigan, where we have so much good stuff to talk about. You're wasting your time when you're trying to move a base of people that think that it's smart to go, bottom line here, you're wasting your time when you're arguing with people that think it's smart to go outside in the middle of a pandemic where most states are saying you need to cover your mouth before you go outside. Simple as that. And if you want to add to it, most of these people at these rallies and at this one in Michigan, guess what they had on? Face coverings, because they're actually concerned. They're just making a show because they care more about one dude and what he stands for and his family more than they care about you guys. Plain and simple. So I'm done caring about them. Plain and simple. And you should be too. We have a really exciting opportunity here coming in November, and it's on clear display after what happened in Wisconsin. You guys know, a couple Mondays ago, they tried to stop the Wisconsin election from happening. The governor said no election. Pandemic, no election. Wisconsin Supreme Court said no election. Reason? Wisconsin Supreme Court was the big thing on the ballot. There was a Republican running to hold on to his seat. That way they could hold their majority in their state Supreme Court. That way they could go on to do what Wisconsin tends to do because of their Republican and GOP leanings, and that is make it harder for people to vote, suppress voters' rights, do what they can to make it harder for people to vote, be that limiting voter sites, be that eliminating 200,000 voters from the rolls. That's what Wisconsin has done and is known to do. So, Republicans do everything they can, make it as dangerous as possible for people to go out and vote. Make it as hard as possible for people that are taking this pandemic seriously, tend to be left-leaning folks. Make it as hard as possible, as scary as possible, and as difficult as possible for them to go vote. But alas, amongst all those trials and tribulations, pouring down rain, hail, sleet, snow, I don't know if all that happened. I know it did rain very heavily and there was hail. I saw a Twitter video. Despite all of it, Wisconsin Democratic voters showed up and voted for their candidate to take over that Supreme Court seat and won by 10 points. That's not a slim victory. That's not the slim victory people will keep talking about we're fighting for in November. And I believe it will be more of a fight in November. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong there. There's still a lot that needs to be done, but I think we see in Wisconsin the fruits of a really strong organization of people that know what's truly at stake. And I think it's important that we look to the Wisconsin Democratic Party, we look to the people that run the Wisconsin Democratic election outreach, and see what it was that they did right. So that we can take that and address it to Maryland. We can take that and address it to Texas. We can take that and put it into Georgia. We can take that and put it into Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan. Even though I think Wisconsin might be in the bag for Biden by now. That might be a Democrat win in November. Now, obviously, there's a lot of caveats to this still. Will we actually be able to vote in November? Will there be vote by mail in November? Will there be a postal service in November? There's a lot of questions. But as long as Democrats come together, stop worrying about Trump's base, and organize effectively, hit the phones, hit the pavement, hit the Zoom calls, whatever we're allowed to do, as long as we organize effectively, there is no reason that Donald Trump is still president in January, and there is no reason there is a single Republican left in the Senate. Not a single Republican left in the House. I know there will be. I know that's broad and huge terms and whatever. But as long as we organize, we don't underestimate the value of this campaign. We don't underestimate the value of this election. It's not the most important election of our lifetime. They're always going to be increasing in value. However, it's a very winnable election. If we get people out, if people show up no matter what, like they did in Wisconsin, if we use that playbook that Wisconsin used, there's no reason we don't flip the Senate, there's no reason we don't hold the House, there's no reason we don't win the presidency. And have a ruling trifecta that gets us whatever we want. Think about that. Right now, the projections are showing that Democrats win the Senate, Democrats hold the House, and Democrats win the presidency. All we need is to just keep up the fight and get it right this time. This isn't 2016. People keep saying, oh, it's 2016 all over again. We talked about it last week. This is so different than 2016. For one, the what can go wrong argument with Donald Trump. That argument is out the window. We saw what can go wrong. It's 30,000 plus deaths in the matter of a month and a half. That's what can go wrong. He's not running against Hillary Clinton. So there's no hate for Hillary Clinton working against the Democrats. He's not running against a woman. It matters. It sucks, but it matters. Joe Biden already has more on his side than Hillary Clinton did the entire election, strictly based on the worst things, and that is that he is a man, and that's that he is not a Clinton. It doesn't make sense. That's the identity politics we live in. That's how it is right now. We can change that, but that's the story right now. We have an opportunity. We just have to organize, get together, stop worrying about the idiots, and take it. Did I cover everything? I think I covered everything. Nice tight pod today. Oh, we didn't cover everything. Endorsements. Oh, this is actually a good thing to end on, because we endorsed today. We've endorsed Joe Biden on the podcast today. The question is, do endorsements matter? And I do not believe so. I know you can say, oh, but Jim Clyburn endorsed Bernie Sanders or endorsed Joe Biden, and that's why he won South Carolina. No, it's not. He won South Carolina because Bernie couldn't appeal to older black voters. Clyburn might have had a lot to play with that by endorsing Biden, but I don't think Clyburn's endorsement is what did it. I don't think there are truly kingmakers in politics. I think that's ridiculous. I think that is so stupid to believe in. Oh, this guy's a kingmaker. Oh, her endorsement will change everything. That's why I don't think that Obama endorsing Joe Biden changes anything. Did you think Barack Obama was going to not endorse Joe Biden this whole time? Come on. Did you think Barack Obama wasn't going to give Joe Biden his full-throated endorsement if he was the candidate? Do we give Barack Obama too much credit for his voice in the party? Yes, absolutely we do. But it's a good voice, and it's nice that he endorsed. Not a surprise. Elizabeth Warren endorsing. Nice. Not a surprise. Does that move the needle? No. Bernie endorsing, that does move the needle. I think it does depend on the person with the endorsement, but more times than not, it does not matter who endorses who. It's crazy, because it's not about individuals in this. It's about all of us. Not about who Jim Clyburn likes. It's not about who Beto O'Rourke endorsed. It's not about who consolidated behind who. Of course these people are going to support Joe Biden, because he's the only choice we have. He's our empty vessel. We just need to make him our message bullet, I guess. I'll come up with a better metaphor for that for next week's show. We hope to have you there with us next Tuesday. Again, thank you for listening. More, and another thing next week. Subscribe, like, share, comment, review, whatever you gotta do. Thank you for listening. See you next week.